What if you could break free from the patterns holding you back, not just for a day, but for good? What if the key to transforming your life was already within you, waiting to be unlocked? This is the promise of Stoicism, a philosophy as timeless as it is practical. Marcus Aurelius, one of its greatest practitioners, once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. These words aren't just ancient wisdom, they're a call to action, a reminder that the way we think shapes the way we live. In this video, we'll dive into 30 bold Stoic practices designed to help you dismantle negative patterns, reclaim control over your thoughts, and build a life rooted in clarity and purpose. These aren't quick fixes or empty promises, they're tools to help you cultivate resilience, focus, and inner peace, no matter what challenges come your way. So take a moment to reflect. What habits or thought patterns are holding you back? By the end of this video, you'll have a roadmap to not just confront them, but to rise above them. Let's begin. The first step to freedom is understanding what you can and cannot control. This is the heart of the Stoic principle known as the Dichotomy of Control, a concept that teaches us to focus our energy only on what lies within our power. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most influential teachers, put it simply, "Some things are within our control and some things are not. What we think, how we feel, and the actions we take, these are ours to shape." But external events, the behavior of others, or even the weather, these are beyond our control, no matter how much we wish otherwise. Think about something as common as traffic. You can't control the cars in front of you or the red lights that seem to last forever, but you can control your reaction. Do you let frustration take over, or do you use that time to breathe deeply, listen to a podcast, or reflect on your day? The same applies to workplace stress. You can't control a demanding boss or an unexpected project, but you can control how you approach the situation, whether you let it overwhelm you or choose to tackle it with calm focus. This principle isn't about giving up or being passive. It's about redirecting your energy wisely. When you stop trying to control what's outside your power, you free up mental space to focus on what truly matters, your own thoughts, choices, and actions. So take a moment to reflect. What's one situation where you've wasted energy trying to control the uncontrollable? Recognizing this is the first step toward reclaiming your power and building a life rooted in clarity and purpose. How do you start your day? Is it a rush to check your phone, scroll through notifications, and dive straight into the chaos of life? Or do you take a moment to pause, breathe, and set the tone for what lies ahead? For the Stoics, how you begin your day wasn't just a matter of routine. It was a foundational practice for building resilience and clarity. Marcus Aurelius, in his personal writings known as the Meditations, often began his mornings with reflection, asking himself questions like, "What kind of person do I want to be today? And what challenges might I face and how will I meet them?" This wasn't about overthinking or worrying, it was about preparation. By envisioning potential obstacles and mentally rehearsing how to handle them, he cultivated a mindset ready to face whatever the day might bring. This practice of morning reflection is as relevant today as it was 2,000 years ago. Imagine starting your day not with a sense of dread or overwhelm, but with a calm, focused mindset. You could spend just 5 minutes journaling, writing down your intentions for the day, or even silently reflecting on how you'll respond to difficult situations. For example, if you know you have a tough meeting ahead, you might remind yourself to stay composed, listen actively, and not take anything personally. Or if you're facing a personal challenge, you could visualize yourself handling it with grace and determination. This isn't about predicting the future, it's about equipping yourself with the mental tools to navigate it. Think about it this way: athletes don't step onto the field without warming up. Musicians don't perform without tuning their instruments. Why should your mind be any different? By starting your day with reflection, you're essentially warming up your mental muscles, preparing yourself to face challenges with poise and purpose. So here's a question to consider. What's one challenge you can prepare for tomorrow morning? Whether it's a difficult conversation, a looming deadline, or simply the grind of daily life, taking a few moments to reflect can make all the difference. This small, intentional habit can help you build the resilience and clarity you need to not just survive the day, but thrive in it. The day isn't complete without reflection. While morning preparation sets the tone for what lies ahead, the Stoics believed that evening reflection was just as crucial, a time to pause, review, and learn. Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, emphasized the importance of this daily practice, writing, "When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said." This wasn't about dwelling on mistakes or patting himself on the back for successes. It was about honest, intentional self-examination, a way to grow wiser and more grounded with each passing day. So, what does this look like in practice? Imagine ending your day not by scrolling through your phone or binge watching a show, but by taking just 10 minutes to reflect. You might ask yourself questions like, what went well today? Where did I fall short? Or how did I respond to challenges? The goal isn't to judge yourself harshly, but to observe your actions and decisions with clarity and curiosity. For example, maybe you lost your temper during a conversation earlier in the day. Instead of beating yourself up, you could reflect on what triggered that reaction and how you might handle it differently next time. Or perhaps you managed to stay calm under pressure. What strategies helped you succeed, and how can you build on that? This practice isn't just about identifying areas for improvement. It's also about recognizing your strength. By acknowledging what you did well, you reinforce positive behaviors and build confidence in your ability to handle future challenges. And by honestly assessing where you stumbled, you create opportunities for growth. It's like a mental debrief, a way to process the day's events and extract lessons that prepare you for tomorrow. Seneca's evening reflections often took the form of journaling, and this is a habit you can easily adopt. Grab a notebook or open a blank document and write down your thoughts. There's no need for perfection, just let your reflections flow. Alternatively, you might prefer quiet contemplation, sitting in stillness and mentally reviewing your day. The method doesn't matter as much as the intention behind it, to learn, to grow, and to become more aligned with the person you aspire to be. Here's a question to consider as you reflect. What's one thing you could have handled better today? Maybe it's a moment of impatience, a missed opportunity to show kindness, or a decision that didn't align with your values. Whatever it is, use it as a stepping stone, not a stumbling block. Remember, the goal isn't to dwell on the past, but to learn from it. By making evening reflection a regular practice, you'll not only gain deeper self-awareness, but also cultivate the resilience and wisdom needed to live a more intentional, fulfilling life. What if you imagined losing everything you value? It's a jarring thought, isn't it? Yet, this is the essence of a Stoic practice known as negative visualization, a powerful tool for cultivating gratitude and resilience. The idea isn't to dwell on fear or pessimism, but to prepare yourself mentally for life's uncertainties. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most eloquent voices, often wrote about the importance of appreciating what we have while we still have it. In one of his letters, he advised, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?' By envisioning loss, we confront our fears, and in doing so, learn to value what we often take for granted." Consider this. Imagine losing your job. The initial shock, the uncertainty, the financial strain, it's a scenario many of us dread. But what if you use this mental exercise not to spiral into anxiety, but to deepen your appreciation for the work you have now? Or think about the people in your life. What if you imagined, even for a moment, life without a loved one? It's uncomfortable, yes, but it can also awaken a profound sense of gratitude for the time you share with them. Negative visualization isn't about inviting despair, it's about grounding yourself in the present and recognizing the impermanence of all things. This practice has a dual purpose. First, it helps you prepare emotionally for potential hardships, so if they do arise, you're not caught off guard. Second, it reminds you to cherish what you have while it's still here. Too often, we fall into the trap of taking our blessings for granted, our health, our relationships, even the simple comforts of daily life. Negative visualization pulls you out of that complacency and shifts your focus to gratitude. So, here's a question to reflect on. What's one thing you take for granted that you could appreciate more? It might be something as small as a warm meal or as significant as the support of a friend. By practicing negative visualization, even briefly, you can train yourself to see the value in what you already have. This isn't about living in fear of loss, it's about living fully in the present, with a heart full of gratitude and a mind ready for whatever comes next. How often do your thoughts control you? It's a question worth asking because for many of us, our minds can feel like a runaway train, thoughts racing, emotions spiraling, and stress taking the wheel. But what if you could step back and observe your thoughts without letting them dictate your actions? This is the heart of cognitive detachment, a Stoic practice that teaches us to separate ourselves from harmful thoughts and emotions. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, put it this way: it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. In other words, our perception of an event often has more power over us than the event itself. Take a moment to think about a recent stressful situation. Maybe it was a difficult conversation, a missed deadline, or even something as small as a rude comment from a stranger. How did you react? Did you let frustration or anger take over, or were you able to pause and respond with clarity? Cognitive detachment is about creating that pause, about recognizing that your thoughts and emotions are not you. They're simply passing experiences like clouds in the sky. You don't have to grab onto them or let them carry you away. Instead, you can observe them, acknowledge them, and then choose how to respond. For example, imagine you're stuck in traffic. Your first thought might be, "This is ruining my day." But with cognitive detachment, you can reframe that thought. "This is inconvenient, but it's not the end of the world. I can use this time to listen to music or reflect on something positive." By shifting your perspective, you take control of your reaction rather than letting the situation control you. This isn't about ignoring your emotions, it's about seeing them for what they are, temporary, changeable, and ultimately within your power to manage. Epictetus often emphasized the importance of distinguishing between what's in your control and what isn't. Your thoughts, for instance, are something you can influence. You can't always stop a negative thought from arising, but you can decide whether to dwell on it or let it go. This practice takes time and effort, but it's incredibly liberating. When you learn to detach from harmful thoughts, you free yourself from their grip, creating space for calm, clarity, and deliberate action. So, here's a question to reflect on. What's one thought you can detach from today? It might be a worry about the future, a regret from the past, or even a judgment about yourself or someone else. By practicing cognitive detachment, you're not just managing your thoughts, you're reclaiming your power to shape your own experience. And that's a skill that can transform not just your day, but your entire life. Growth lies outside your comfort zone. It's a truth as old as time, yet one we often resist. The Stoics understood this deeply, teaching that true resilience is forged not in ease but in discomfort. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, often reflected on the value of enduring hardship, writing, "What stands in the way becomes the way." For him, challenges weren't obstacles to avoid. They were opportunities to grow stronger, wiser, and more capable. This mindset isn't about seeking pain for its own sake, but about recognizing that discomfort is a powerful teacher. Consider the modern practice of cold showers. At first glance, it might seem unnecessary. Why subject yourself to something unpleasant when warm water is readily available? But the act of stepping into that icy stream isn't just about physical endurance, it's a mental exercise. It trains you to face discomfort head-on, to breathe through the initial shock, and to emerge on the other side feeling more in control. It's a small, daily reminder that you can handle more than you think. Or take public speaking, a fear that tops many lists of common anxieties. The thought of standing in front of a crowd, vulnerable and exposed, can feel overwhelming. Yet, every time you step up to the podium, you're not just delivering a speech, you're building confidence, learning to manage your nerves, and proving to yourself that you can rise to the challenge. The Stoics didn't shy away from discomfort because they knew it was essential to growth. They saw it as a kind of mental training, a way to prepare for life's inevitable hardships. By willingly embracing small discomforts, they built the resilience needed to face larger ones. Think of it like lifting weights. The resistance is what makes you stronger. Without it, you'd never grow. The same principle applies to your mind. When you intentionally step into situations that feel uncomfortable, you're not just surviving, you're thriving. So here's a question to consider. What's one discomfort you can embrace this week? Maybe it's starting a conversation with someone you've been hesitant to approach, taking on a task you've been avoiding, or even waking up earlier to carve out time for reflection. Whatever it is, remember that the discomfort isn't the enemy, it's the path to becoming the best version of yourself. By leaning into it, even in small ways, you're building the mental muscle to handle whatever life throws your way. And that's a skill worth cultivating. What truly matters in life? It's a question that has echoed through the ages, and the Stoics had a clear answer: virtue. For them, living a good life wasn't about accumulating wealth, fame, or status. It was about cultivating inner excellence. Virtue, they believed, was the foundation of a meaningful existence. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most influential teachers, put it plainly: first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. In other words, your actions should align with your values. But what does that look like in practice? The Stoics identified 4 cardinal virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. Wisdom is the ability to see clearly, to discern what's truly important and what's merely a distraction. Courage isn't just about physical bravery, it's about standing up for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable. Justice is about fairness and treating others with respect, while temperance is the practice of self-control and moderation. Together, these virtues form a blueprint for living with integrity and purpose. Let's take a simple example: honesty. Imagine you're at work and a colleague asks for your opinion on a project you know isn't up to par. It would be easier to give a vague response or even a white lie to avoid conflict, but choosing honesty, even when it's inconvenient, is an act of virtue. It's a way of practicing wisdom by recognizing the importance of truth, courage by facing potential discomfort, and justice by valuing your colleague's growth over your own comfort. It's a small moment, but one that reflects the Stoic emphasis on aligning your actions with your values. Epictetus often reminded his students that external rewards, money, praise, or status, are fleeting. What lasts is the character you build through virtuous actions. He wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself." This means that true freedom comes from living in accordance with your principles, not from chasing external validation. When you focus on virtue, you're not just improving yourself, you're contributing to the greater good. Every act of kindness, every moment of self-discipline, and every decision rooted in fairness ripples outward, creating a more just and compassionate world. So, here's a question to reflect on. What's one way you can act more virtuously today? Maybe it's resisting the urge to gossip, standing up for someone who's being treated unfairly, or simply taking a moment to listen deeply to a friend in need. It doesn't have to be grand or dramatic. Virtue often shows up in the small, everyday choices we make. By focusing on what truly matters, you're not just living a stoic life, you're living a life of meaning, one virtuous action at a time. Remember, you will die. It's a statement that cuts through the noise of daily life, a stark reminder of our finite time here. This is the essence of Memento Mori, a Latin phrase meaning, remember you must die. Far from being morbid, this Stoic practice is about grounding yourself in the reality of life's impermanence, so you can live with greater intention and purpose. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, wrote extensively about the brevity of life, urging his readers to confront this truth head-on. It is not that we have a short time to live, he said, but that we waste a lot of it. His words challenge us to reflect. Are we spending our days on what truly matters, or are we caught in the endless cycle of distractions and trivialities? Consider this: if you knew your time was limited not in some distant, abstract future, but in a tangible, immediate way, how would your priorities shift? Would you spend hours scrolling through social media, or would you dedicate that time to nurturing relationships, pursuing passions, or making a difference? Memento Mori isn't about fear or despair, it's about clarity. It's a wake-up call to stop postponing what matters and start living with urgency and focus. Let's take a practical example. Imagine you've been putting off a dream, writing a book, starting a business, or even reconnecting with a loved one. You tell yourself, I'll do it someday, but someday never seems to come. Now imagine reflecting on your mortality each morning. That dream no longer feels like something you can delay indefinitely. Instead, it becomes a priority, something you act on today because tomorrow isn't guaranteed. This is the power of Memento Mori. It strips away excuses and forces you to confront what you truly value. Seneca often compared life to a river flowing steadily toward an inevitable end. He wrote, "Life is long if you know how to use it." By remembering that your time is finite, you're not just reminded of the end, you're reminded of the now. Every moment becomes an opportunity to make a choice, to take a step toward the life you want to live. It's not about living in fear of death, but about living in reverence for life. So, here's a question to reflect on. What's one thing you'd do differently if you remembered life is short? Maybe it's pursuing a long-held passion, repairing a broken relationship, or simply savoring the small moments you often overlook. By practicing Memento Mori, you're not just acknowledging your mortality, you're embracing the gift of the present, using it to shape a life that's rich, meaningful, and true to who you are. Love your fate no matter what. At first glance, these words might sound like passive acceptance, a resignation to whatever life throws your way. But in Stoicism, this idea, known as Amor Fati, is anything but passive. It's an active, intentional embrace of life in all its complexity and unpredictability. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, captured this sentiment perfectly when he wrote, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." In other words, no matter what happens, whether it's a setback, a failure, or even a moment of suffering, you have the power to transform it into something meaningful. This isn't about pretending everything is perfect. It's about finding purpose in every experience, even the difficult ones. Think about a time when things didn't go as planned. Maybe you missed out on a job opportunity, faced a rejection, or experienced a personal loss. In those moments, it's natural to feel frustration, disappointment, or even anger. But what if, instead of resisting those feelings, you chose to see them as part of your story, not as obstacles, but as opportunities to grow? That's the essence of Amor Fati. It's about shifting your perspective from "why is this happening to me" to "what can I learn from this?" Let's take a specific example. Imagine you've worked tirelessly on a project, only to have it fall short of expectations. Your initial reaction might be to dwell on the failure, questioning your abilities or giving up altogether. But with Amor Fati, you could choose to see this as a chance to refine your skills, identify areas for improvement, and come back stronger. It's not about ignoring the pain or pretending it doesn't matter. It's about using that pain as fuel for growth. Marcus Aurelius himself faced countless challenges during his reign, from political turmoil to personal loss. Yet he consistently found ways to turn adversity into strength, writing, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This principle isn't just for life's big moments, it applies to the everyday too. Maybe you're stuck in traffic, dealing with a difficult coworker, or facing a mundane task you'd rather avoid. In each of these situations, you have a choice: to resist and resent, or to accept and adapt. By practicing Amor Fati, you're not just enduring life's challenges, you're embracing them as essential parts of your journey, recognizing that even the smallest obstacles can teach you something valuable. So here's a question to reflect on. What's one challenge you can start to love today? It might be a personal struggle, a professional setback, or even a daily inconvenience. Whatever it is, try to see it not as a burden but as an opportunity. By choosing to love your fate, every twist, every turn, you're not just accepting life as it is. You're shaping it into something richer, deeper, and more meaningful, and that's the true power of Amor Fati. How much is enough? It's a question that can stop you in your tracks if you really sit with it. In a world that constantly tells us to want more stuff, more success, more validation, the Stoics offer a radical alternative. The idea that true peace comes not from accumulating, but from letting go. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most practical thinkers, put it bluntly: wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. This isn't about rejecting material comforts altogether. It's about recognizing that they don't hold the key to lasting happiness. Instead, the Stoics teach us to find contentment within ourselves, free from the endless chase for external validation. Consider the modern practice of decluttering. It's not just about creating a tidier space, it's about creating a freer mind. When you let go of things you don't need, you're not just clearing out your closet, you're making room for clarity and focus. Each item you release is a small act of liberation, a reminder that you don't need things to define or fulfill you. Or take screen time, another area where external desires often take hold. How many hours do we spend scrolling, consuming content, or chasing the next dopamine hit? What if instead you chose to step away from the screen and reconnect with the present moment? These small acts of letting go aren't just practical, they're deeply Stoic, aligning with the philosophy's emphasis on inner richness over external abundance. Epictetus often warned against becoming too attached to possessions, status, or even relationships. He believed that when we tie our happiness to things outside our control, we set ourselves up for disappointment. If you wish to improve, he said, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. In other words, true freedom comes when you stop seeking approval or validation from others and start living in alignment with your own values. This isn't about becoming indifferent, it's about becoming intentional. It's about choosing what truly matters and letting go of the rest. So here's a challenge for you. What's one thing you can let go of to find more peace? Maybe it's a physical possession you've been clinging to, a habit that no longer serves you, or even an expectation you've placed on yourself or others. Whatever it is, take a moment to reflect on how it's shaping your life. Is it adding value or is it weighing you down? By practicing this intentional release, you're not just simplifying your surroundings, you're reclaiming your peace of mind. And in a world that constantly demands more, that's a radical act of freedom. Gratitude transforms what you have into enough. These words carry a profound truth that the Stoics understood deeply. In a world that often pushes us to crave more success, more possessions, more recognition, gratitude offers a counterbalance. It's not about denying ambition or settling for less. It's about finding richness in what's already here. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, often wrote about the importance of gratitude, urging his readers to pause and reflect on the gifts life offers, no matter how small. In one of his letters, he said, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." It's a reminder that contentment isn't found in what we lack, but in what we already possess. So how do you cultivate this mindset? One powerful practice is keeping a gratitude journal. At the end of each day, take a few minutes to write down 3 things you're grateful for. It could be something as simple as a warm cup of coffee in the morning, a kind word from a friend, or even the quiet moments of solitude after a busy day. The act of writing helps you slow down and truly notice these gifts, shifting your focus from what's missing to what's abundant. Over time, this habit rewires your brain to see the good in your life, even on the toughest days. Think about it. When was the last time you paused to appreciate the small, everyday blessings? Maybe it's the sound of laughter, the beauty of a sunset, or the comfort of a familiar routine. These moments often go unnoticed, yet they hold the power to transform your perspective. Gratitude isn't just a feeling, it's a practice, a deliberate choice to recognize and celebrate the good, even when life feels challenging. Here's a question to reflect on. What's one thing you're grateful for today? It doesn't have to be grand or extraordinary. In fact, it's often the simplest things: the smell of fresh air, the warmth of sunlight on your skin, or the smile of a loved one that remind us of life's beauty. By taking a moment to acknowledge these gifts, you're not just practicing gratitude, you're cultivating a mindset of abundance. And in a world that constantly tells us we need more, that's a radical and transformative act. When was the last time you truly listened to silence? Not just the absence of noise, but the kind of quiet that allows you to hear your own thoughts, to feel the rhythm of your breath, and to reconnect with what matters most. For the Stoics, silence wasn't just a break from the chaos, it was a gateway to clarity and inner peace. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, often retreated into moments of solitude, writing, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." These moments of stillness weren't escapes from life, they were essential tools for navigating it with wisdom and calm. In today's world, silence can feel like a rare commodity. Between the constant buzz of notifications, the chatter of daily life, and the relentless pace of modern living, it's easy to lose touch with the quiet within. Yet the Stoics remind us that stillness isn't just a luxury, it's a necessity. It's in those moments of quiet that we can step back, reflect, and gain perspective. Think of it like this: when a lake is still, you can see clearly to the bottom. But when the water is stirred up, everything becomes murky. The same is true for your mind. Without stillness, it's hard to see clearly or make thoughtful decisions. One practical way to cultivate stillness is through meditation. Even just 5 minutes of sitting quietly, focusing on your breath, can help quiet the mental noise and bring you back to the present moment. Alternatively, you might try a mindful walk, a practice where you focus on the sensations of each step, the feeling of the ground beneath your feet, and the sounds of nature around you. These simple practices aren't about emptying your mind, but about creating space to observe your thoughts without being overwhelmed by them. Marcus Aurelius often used his moments of solitude to reflect on his actions and intentions. He wrote, "Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up if you will ever dig." This inward focus wasn't about self-criticism but about self-awareness, a way to align his actions with his values and to find peace amidst the demands of leadership. For us too, stillness can be a mirror, reflecting not just what's happening around us but what's happening within. So, here's a question to consider. What's one moment of stillness you can create today? It might be as simple as turning off your phone for a few minutes, sitting by a window and watching the clouds, or taking a deep breath before responding to a stressful situation. These small acts of stillness aren't just pauses, they're opportunities to reset, to reconnect, and to approach life with greater clarity and purpose. In a world that never stops moving, stillness is your anchor, grounding you in the present and reminding you of the peace that's always within reach. Every obstacle is an opportunity. At first, this statement might sound overly optimistic, even unrealistic, but for the Stoics, it wasn't just a feel-good mantra, it was a philosophy for living. They believed that challenges, no matter how daunting, could be transformed into stepping stones for growth. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most practical teachers, put it this way: difficulties are things that show a person what they are. In other words, obstacles aren't just barriers, they're mirrors, reflecting back our strengths, our resilience, and our capacity to adapt. Let's take a moment to unpack this idea. Imagine you're faced with a major career setback. Maybe you've lost your job, or a project you poured your heart into didn't succeed. Your first reaction might be frustration, disappointment, or even self-doubt. But what if, instead of seeing this as a failure, you saw it as a chance to pivot? What if this setback opened the door to a new opportunity, one you might not have considered otherwise? This is the essence of reframing obstacles. It's not about denying the difficulty of the situation. It's about finding the potential within it. Consider the story of someone who loses their job unexpectedly. At first, it feels like a devastating blow, but instead of giving in to despair, they use the time to reflect on their goals, explore new industries, or even start their own business. What initially seemed like a dead end becomes a turning point, a chance to build something even more aligned with their values and passions. This isn't just resilience, it's a reimagining of what's possible. Epictetus often reminded his students that life is full of events we can't control, but our reactions are entirely within our power. He wrote, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This perspective shifts the focus from the obstacle itself to the way we choose to respond. It's not about pretending everything is fine. It's about recognizing that even the hardest moments can teach us something valuable. Every challenge is a classroom, and every setback is a lesson in disguise. So, here's a question to reflect on. What's one obstacle you can reframe today? It might be a professional hurdle, a personal struggle, or even a daily inconvenience. Whatever it is, try to see it not as a roadblock but as a chance to grow. What strengths can you draw on? What new possibilities might this challenge reveal? By reframing obstacles, you're not just overcoming them, you're transforming them into opportunities to become stronger, wiser, and more resilient. And that's a skill that will serve you well no matter what life throws your way. How often are you truly present, not just physically there, but fully engaged with your mind and heart aligned in the moment? It's a question worth asking because for many of us, the present slips away unnoticed, lost in the noise of past regrets or future worries. The Stoics, however, saw the present as the only moment we truly possess, a gift to be cherished, not squandered. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most eloquent voices, wrote, "Life is long if you know how to use it." Yet he lamented how often we waste this precious resource, distracted by what's already gone or what's yet to come. His words remind us that time is fleeting, and the only way to truly live is to anchor ourselves in the here and now. Let's take something as simple as eating. How many meals do we rush through, barely tasting the food as we scroll through our phones or think about the next task on our to-do list? Mindful eating, a practice rooted in Stoic principles, invites us to slow down and savor each bite. Notice the texture, the flavors, the way the food nourishes your body. This isn't just about enjoying your meal more, it's about training your mind to be present. When you focus on the act of eating, you're not just feeding your body, you're cultivating a habit of mindfulness that can spill over into other areas of your life. Or consider listening. How often do you find yourself half listening to someone, already formulating your response before they've even finished speaking? True listening, the kind that requires your full attention, is a rare and powerful act. It's about being present with the person in front of you, giving them the gift of your undivided focus. In that moment, you're not just hearing words, you're connecting, understanding, and affirming their humanity. This is Stoicism in action, a deliberate choice to be fully engaged, even in the simplest of interactions. Seneca often warned against the trap of postponing life. He wrote, "We are not given a short life, but we make it short, and we are not ill-supplied, but wasteful of it." His words challenge us to stop putting off the things that matter, to stop waiting for the right moment to truly live. The present is all we have, and it's enough if we choose to embrace it. By focusing on the here and now, we're not just passing time, we're making time meaningful. So, here's a question to reflect on. What's one moment you can fully immerse yourself in today? It might be as simple as savoring your morning coffee, truly listening to a loved one, or even taking a few deep breaths to center yourself. Whatever it is, let it be a reminder that the present is where life happens. By practicing presence, you're not just living, you're thriving one moment at a time. True strength lies in humility. At first glance, this might seem counterintuitive. After all, humility is often misunderstood as weakness or self-doubt. But for the Stoics, humility was a cornerstone of wisdom and inner strength. It's about recognizing your limitations, staying grounded, and embracing the truth that no one has all the answers. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, often reflected on this in his meditations, reminding himself, "You are just a soul carrying a corpse." This stark imagery wasn't meant to demean, but to humble, a reminder that no matter how much power or success we achieve, we're all human, all flawed, and all learning. Think about how humility shows up in relationships. It's the willingness to admit when you're wrong, to say, "I made a mistake," or "I need help." These moments of vulnerability aren't signs of weakness, they're acts of courage. They strengthen trust, deepen connections, and create space for growth. Imagine a leader who refuses to acknowledge their errors. Over time, that arrogance erodes trust and stifles collaboration. But a leader who practices humility, they inspire loyalty, foster open communication, and create a culture where everyone feels valued. Humility, in this sense, isn't just a personal virtue, it's a relational one, a way of building bridges rather than walls. Marcus Aurelius also emphasized humility as a tool for self-awareness. He wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." In other words, don't let pride or ego dictate your actions. When you stay humble, you're less likely to react defensively or seek validation from others. Instead, you can focus on what truly matters, living in alignment with your values even when it's uncomfortable. This kind of humility requires constant practice. It's not about diminishing yourself, but about seeing yourself clearly, acknowledging your strengths without arrogance and your flaws without shame. Here's a practical example. Imagine you're working on a team project and someone points out a flaw in your approach. Your first instinct might be to defend yourself or dismiss their feedback. But what if instead you paused and said, "Thank you for pointing that out. I'll take another look." That simple act of humility not only improves the project but also strengthens the team dynamic. It shows that you value growth over ego, collaboration over control. So, here's a question to reflect on. What's one way you can practice humility today? Maybe it's admitting a mistake, asking for feedback, or simply listening more and speaking less. Whatever it is, remember that humility isn't about shrinking yourself. It's about expanding your capacity for connection, growth, and understanding. By embracing this practice, you're not just becoming stronger, you're becoming wiser, more grounded, and more deeply human. And in a world that often celebrates ego, that's a radical and transformative act. How do you bounce back when life knocks you down? It's a question we all face at some point, and the Stoics had a clear answer. Resilience isn't something you're born with, it's something you build. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who endured slavery before becoming one of history's most profound teachers, once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you respond to it that matters." These words aren't just a comforting thought, they're a call to action. Resilience, in the Stoic sense, is about developing the mental toughness to endure hardship without being broken by it. It's not about avoiding pain, but about learning to move through it with strength and purpose. Picture this: you've just experienced a personal loss, a relationship ends, a loved one passes away, or a long-held dream crumbles. The pain is real and it's heavy, but here's where Stoic resilience comes into play. Instead of letting the grief consume you, you can choose to honor the experience by learning from it. Maybe the loss teaches you to cherish the time you have with others or reveals a strength you didn't know you had. This isn't about suppressing emotions, it's about channeling them into growth. Epictetus believed that every challenge, no matter how painful, is an opportunity to strengthen your character. He wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." In other words, hardship isn't just something to survive, it's something to use. Let's bring this into a modern context. Imagine you've been passed over for a promotion at work. The initial sting of disappointment is natural, but resilience means asking yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I use this setback to become better? Maybe it's a chance to refine your skills, seek feedback, or explore new opportunities. The key is to shift your mindset from victimhood to empowerment. Resilience isn't about denying the pain, it's about refusing to let it define you. So, here's a question to reflect on. What's one challenge you can face with resilience today? It might be something big, like navigating a career change, or something smaller, like dealing with a difficult conversation. Whatever it is, try to see it not as a roadblock but as a chance to grow. By cultivating resilience, you're not just enduring life's storms, you're learning to dance in the rain, emerging stronger, wiser, and more grounded with every step. And that's a skill worth building, one challenge at a time. Less is more. It's a phrase we've all heard, but how often do we truly live by it? The Stoics understood the power of simplicity long before it became a modern-day mantra. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most eloquent voices, wrote extensively about the importance of stripping away the unnecessary to focus on what truly matters. In one of his letters, he advised, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." These words cut straight to the heart of the matter. True wealth isn't found in accumulation, but in contentment, in knowing what's enough and letting go of the rest. Think about the clutter in your life, not just the physical kind, but the mental and emotional noise that distracts you from what's important. Maybe it's a packed schedule that leaves no room for reflection, or a constant stream of notifications pulling your attention in every direction. Simplifying isn't about deprivation, it's about creating space to breathe, to think, and to focus on what brings you meaning. Decluttering your environment, for example, can have a profound impact on your mental clarity. When you remove the excess, you're not just tidying up, you're making room for what truly matters. Seneca often spoke about setting boundaries not just with others but with ourselves. He believed that by saying no to distractions, we could say yes to a deeper, more intentional life. Take technology, for instance. How often do you find yourself mindlessly scrolling, only to realize hours have passed? Setting boundaries like designating screen-free times or turning off notifications can help you reclaim that lost time and redirect it toward what truly fulfills you. It's not about rejecting modern tools, but about using them wisely so they serve you rather than control you. Here's a question to reflect on. What's one thing you can simplify in your life today? It could be as practical as clearing out a drawer or as profound as letting go of a toxic relationship. Maybe it's about setting boundaries with your time, carving out moments for solitude and reflection. Whatever it is, remember that simplicity isn't a one-time act. It's a practice, a way of living that helps you stay aligned with what truly matters. By simplifying, you're not just reducing clutter, you're creating the conditions for a richer, more meaningful life. And that's a gift only you can give yourself. How do you handle waiting, whether it's for a promotion, a personal goal, or even something as simple as a delayed flight? Waiting can feel like an endless test of your patience. But what if waiting wasn't just something to endure, but something to embrace? For the Stoics, patience wasn't just a virtue, it was a practice, a way of aligning yourself with the natural rhythm of life. Marcus Aurelius, in his meditations, often reflected on the value of enduring delays, writing, "When you are reluctant to get up in the morning, let this thought be present: I am rising to do the work of a human being." His words remind us that waiting isn't passive, it's an opportunity to prepare, to grow, and to stay focused on what truly matters. Think about your career. Maybe you've been working toward a promotion or a new opportunity, but progress feels slow. It's easy to grow frustrated, to feel like your efforts aren't paying off. But the Stoics would encourage you to see this time differently. Instead of fixating on the outcome, focus on what you can do in the present, improving your skills, building relationships, or simply refining your mindset. Patience, in this sense, isn't about sitting back and hoping for the best. It's about staying steady and committed, even when results aren't immediate. As Marcus Aurelius put it, the art of living is more like wrestling than dancing, because an artful life requires being prepared to meet and withstand sudden and unexpected attacks. In other words, patience is a form of strength, a way of staying grounded when the path ahead feels uncertain. Let's take a modern example: waiting for a flight delay. Instead of fuming over the wasted time, you could use those extra hours to read, reflect, or even strike up a conversation with someone nearby. It's a small shift, but one that transforms frustration into opportunity. Or consider a long-term goal, like saving for a dream vacation or completing a degree. The process might feel slow, but each step, whether it's setting aside a little money each month or studying for an exam, is part of the journey. Patience in these moments becomes a way of honoring the process, not just the result. So, here's a question to reflect on. What's one situation where you can practice patience today? Maybe it's waiting for feedback on a project, navigating a challenging relationship, or even sitting through traffic. Whatever it is, try to see it not as a delay, but as a chance to grow. By embracing patience, you're not just waiting for life to happen, you're actively shaping it, one steady step at a time. Everything changes, and that's okay. At first, this might sound like a simple truth, but for the Stoics, it was a profound principle for living. They understood that impermanence isn't just a fact of life, it's the very fabric of it. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, once said, "Nothing is permanent, not even our troubles." These words aren't meant to dismiss the challenges we face, but to remind us that change is inevitable. Whether it's a job loss, the end of a relationship, or even the passing of a loved one, life's impermanence can feel unsettling. Yet the Stoics saw it as an opportunity, a chance to cultivate resilience, adaptability, and a deeper appreciation for the present moment. Think about a time when something you once thought permanent suddenly shifted. Maybe it was a career you thought you'd have forever, a friendship that faded, or even a belief you held tightly. At first, the change might have felt like a loss, but over time, it likely revealed new possibilities, opportunities for growth, new connections, or even a fresh perspective. This is the essence of accepting impermanence. It's not about denying the pain of change, but about finding the potential within it. When we stop resisting life's natural ebb and flow, we open ourselves to growth and discovery. Epictetus often compared life to a river, constantly flowing and never the same. He wrote, "You cannot step into the same river twice. The water you stand in today will be different tomorrow, and so will you." This metaphor isn't just poetic, it's practical. It reminds us that clinging to what's familiar or trying to control the uncontrollable only leads to suffering. Instead, the Stoics taught us to embrace change as a natural part of existence, to flow with life rather than fight against it. Let's bring this into a modern context. Imagine you've just moved to a new city. At first, everything feels unfamiliar: the streets, the people, even the rhythm of daily life. It's easy to long for the comfort of what you left behind. But what if, instead of resisting the change, you leaned into it? What if you saw this new chapter as a chance to explore, to meet new people, and to discover parts of yourself you didn't know existed? This shift in perspective doesn't erase the challenges, but it transforms them into opportunities. It's a way of aligning yourself with the Stoic principle of impermanence, recognizing that change, even when difficult, can be a catalyst for growth. So here's a question to reflect on. What's one change you can embrace today? It might be something as small as trying a new routine, or as significant as letting go of a long-held expectation. Whatever it is, try to see it not as a loss, but as an opening, a chance to grow, to adapt, and to live more fully. By accepting impermanence, you're not just enduring life's changes, you're thriving in them, one moment at a time. How do you stay focused on your goals when distractions seem to lurk around every corner? For the Stoics, the answer lay in self-discipline, a practice that wasn't about rigid self-denial, but about aligning your actions with your deepest values. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most influential thinkers, wrote extensively about mastering desires, urging his readers to treat yourself as someone you are responsible for helping. This wasn't about punishing yourself or living a life of austerity. It was about making intentional choices that reflect what truly matters to you. Self-discipline, in this sense, becomes a form of self-respect, a way of honoring your commitments and staying true to your path, even when the easier option tempts you. Let's take something as relatable as sticking to a fitness routine. We've all been there. The alarm goes off early in the morning and the bed feels impossibly comfortable. It's so much easier to hit snooze and promise yourself you'll work out later, but self-discipline is about showing up for yourself even when it's hard. It's about recognizing that the momentary comfort of staying in bed pales in comparison to the long-term benefits of consistency, whether that's improved health, mental clarity, or a sense of accomplishment. Seneca believed that mastering small, daily habits like this was the key to building the mental strength needed to tackle life's bigger challenges. He wrote, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare, it is because we do not dare that they are difficult." In other words, self-discipline isn't just about overcoming obstacles, it's about building the courage to face them in the first place. But self-discipline isn't just about physical habits, it's also about managing your thoughts and emotions. Imagine you're working on a project and you hit a roadblock, frustration kicks in, and your mind starts to wander toward easier, more enjoyable tasks. Self-discipline is what pulls you back, reminding you of why you started and what you're working toward. It's about choosing focus over distraction, even when it feels uncomfortable. This isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Every time you resist the urge to give in to a momentary impulse, you're strengthening your ability to stay aligned with your values. So, here's a question to reflect on. What's one area where you can strengthen your self-discipline today? Maybe it's committing to a daily habit, like reading for 20 minutes instead of scrolling through social media. Or perhaps it's about staying calm in a difficult conversation, choosing patience over anger. Whatever it is, remember that self-discipline isn't about deprivation, it's about empowerment. It's the quiet force that helps you stay true to yourself, even when the world pulls you in 1,000 different directions. And in doing so, it becomes not just a practice, but a pathway to a more intentional, fulfilling life. Knowledge is the path to freedom. These words capture the essence of what it means to seek wisdom, a practice that lies at the heart of Stoicism. For the Stoics, wisdom wasn't just about accumulating facts or mastering theories. It was about understanding the deeper truths of life and using that understanding to live with clarity and purpose. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, often reflected on the importance of seeking truth, writing, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." In other words, what we learn shapes who we become. The pursuit of wisdom, then, isn't just an intellectual exercise, it's a transformative journey, one that helps us navigate life's complexities with greater insight and resilience. So, what does this pursuit look like in practice? For the Stoics, it often began with reading and reflection. Marcus Aurelius himself was deeply influenced by the works of earlier philosophers, and he dedicated time each day to study and contemplation. But wisdom isn't confined to ancient texts. It can be found in conversations with mentors, in the lessons of everyday experiences, or even in the quiet moments of self-reflection. The key is to approach life with curiosity and an open mind, always seeking to learn and grow. Take the example of mentorship. Imagine you're navigating a challenging career transition. Instead of relying solely on your own perspective, you could seek guidance from someone who's walked a similar path. Their insights might not only help you avoid common pitfalls, but also inspire you to see new possibilities. Or consider the act of reading philosophy. Even a single passage from a Stoic text can offer a fresh perspective, helping you reframe a problem or find meaning in a difficult situation. Wisdom, in this sense, isn't about having all the answers, it's about asking the right questions and being willing to explore them. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to look within for answers. He believed that true wisdom comes from aligning our thoughts and actions with universal truths, such as the impermanence of life or the importance of virtue. This inward focus doesn't mean shutting out the world. It means using the world as a classroom, learning from every experience, whether it's a success, a failure, or something in between. Each moment becomes an opportunity to grow wiser, to deepen your understanding of yourself and the world around you. Here's a question to reflect on. What's one thing you can learn today to grow wiser? It might be as simple as reading a chapter of a book, having a meaningful conversation, or even reflecting on a recent experience to extract its lessons. The pursuit of wisdom isn't about grand gestures, it's about the small, consistent choices that add up over time. By committing to this journey, you're not just gaining knowledge, you're unlocking the freedom that comes with living a life guided by truth and understanding. And that's a freedom worth seeking. What does it mean to be kind in a world that often feels indifferent? For the Stoics, kindness wasn't just a soft virtue. It was a form of strength, a deliberate choice to act with compassion even when it's easier not to. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, taught that how we treat others reflects our own character, saying, "No man is free who is not master of himself." In other words, true freedom comes from aligning our actions with our values, and kindness is one of the most powerful ways to do that. It's not about being weak or passive. It's about choosing to uplift others, even when it requires effort or vulnerability. Let's take a moment to think about kindness in action. Imagine you're at work and a colleague is struggling with a heavy workload. You could choose to focus on your own tasks, telling yourself it's not your problem. Or you could offer to help, not because you expect something in return, but because it's the right thing to do. This small act of kindness doesn't just ease their burden, it strengthens your relationship and creates a ripple effect of goodwill. Epictetus believed that treating others with respect and empathy wasn't just about them, it was about cultivating your own inner dignity. He wrote, "What upsets people is not things themselves, but their judgments about these things." When we choose kindness, we're not just helping others, we're shaping our own mindset, training ourselves to see the humanity in everyone we meet. Now, consider something as simple as holding the door for a stranger or smiling at someone who looks like they're having a tough day. These moments might seem small, but they carry immense power. Kindness, in its purest form, is a reminder that we're all connected, that even the smallest gestures can make a difference. It's not about grand acts of heroism, it's about the everyday choices that reveal who we are and what we stand for. The Stoics understood that kindness is a practice, something we cultivate through consistent action, not just fleeting feelings. So, here's a question to reflect on. What's one act of kindness you can perform today? Maybe it's offering a listening ear to a friend, complimenting a coworker on their hard work, or simply saying thank you to someone who often goes unnoticed. Whatever it is, remember that kindness isn't just about the other person, it's about you too. It's a way of affirming your values, of choosing to live with integrity and compassion in a world that doesn't always reward it. And in doing so, you're not just making someone else's day brighter, you're strengthening your own spirit, one kind act at a time. Anger is a poison you drink yourself, a truth the Stoics understood all too well. While it may feel justified in the moment, anger rarely serves us. Instead, it clouds our judgment, disrupts our peace, and often leaves us worse off than before. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most profound thinkers, wrote extensively about the dangers of unchecked anger, calling it the most hideous of all the emotions. He believed that anger was a temporary madness, a force that could distort even the clearest of minds. But here's the good news: anger is not inevitable. It's a reaction, and like all reactions, it's something we can learn to control. Consider a heated argument, whether it's with a coworker, a loved one, or even a stranger. The temptation to lash out can feel overwhelming. But what if, instead of reacting impulsively, you paused? What if you took a breath, stepped back, and chose to respond with calm rather than rage? This is the essence of Stoic practice, not suppressing emotions, but mastering them. Seneca advised, the greatest remedy for anger is delay. By creating even a small gap between the trigger and your response, you give yourself the space to choose a wiser, more constructive path. Imagine this scenario: you're in a tense meeting and someone criticizes your work unfairly. Your first instinct might be to defend yourself angrily or even retaliate. But what if instead you took a moment to reflect? What if you considered that their words might stem from their own stress or insecurity? This shift in perspective doesn't excuse their behavior, but it allows you to respond with clarity rather than emotion. It's not about letting others off the hook, it's about freeing yourself from the grip of anger. Seneca often compared anger to a fire. It burns brightest when fueled, but it fades when starved of attention. He wrote, "Anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it." In other words, holding on to anger harms you far more than the person or situation that caused it. letting go isn't about weakness, it's about reclaiming your power, your peace, and your ability to act with intention. So, here's a question to reflect on. What's one situation where you can let go of anger today? Maybe it's a lingering frustration from an old argument, or perhaps it's a moment of tension you anticipate later in the day. Whatever it is, try to approach it not with resistance, but with calm resolve. By releasing anger, you're not just diffusing a momentary conflict, you're strengthening your ability to navigate life's challenges with clarity and grace. And in doing so, you're choosing to live not as a victim of your emotions, but as the master of your mind. Courage is not the absence of fear, but action despite it. This simple yet profound truth lies at the heart of Stoic philosophy. The Stoics didn't see courage as a superhuman trait reserved for heroes. They saw it as a skill, something anyone could cultivate through practice and intention. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, often reflected on bravery in his meditations, writing, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." For him, courage wasn't about ignoring fear. It was about moving forward even when fear was present. It's about acknowledging the discomfort and choosing to act anyway, because that's where true growth happens. Imagine you're in a meeting and a controversial topic comes up. You have an opinion, but it's unpopular and speaking up feels risky. Your heart races, your palms sweat, and the fear of judgment looms large. Courage in this moment isn't about magically erasing those feelings. It's about stepping into them. It's about raising your hand, sharing your perspective, and trusting that your voice matters even if it shakes. This is Stoic courage in action, not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that fear is just another obstacle to be transformed into opportunity. He wrote, "Do not be afraid of fear, for it is the path to freedom." When you face your fears, you're not just overcoming them, you're proving to yourself that you're stronger than they are. Let's take another example, public speaking, a fear that tops many lists. The thought of standing in front of a crowd, vulnerable and exposed, can feel paralyzing. But what if you reframed that fear? What if, instead of seeing it as a threat, you saw it as a chance to connect, to share your ideas, and to grow? Every time you step onto that stage, no matter how nervous you feel, you're not just giving a speech, you're building confidence, one word at a time. This is the essence of Stoic courage. It's not about eliminating fear, but about using it as fuel to move forward. So, here's a question to reflect on. What's one fear you can confront today? It might be something big, like starting a difficult conversation, or something small, like trying a new activity that makes you uncomfortable. Whatever it is, remember that courage isn't about feeling fearless, it's about choosing to act even when fear is present. By practicing courage, you're not just facing your fears, you're transforming them into stepping stones for growth. And with each step, you're becoming more resilient, more confident, and more alive. That's the power of courage, not just in Stoicism, but in life itself. What does true contentment look like to you? For many, it might seem like a distant goal, something to achieve once you've checked off the right boxes. A better job, a bigger house, or a perfectly curated life. But the Stoics had a different view. They believed contentment wasn't something to chase in the future, it was something to cultivate in the present. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most practical teachers, put it this way: "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." In other words, contentment isn't about what you have, it's about how you see what you already possess. It's a mindset, a way of finding peace right where you are, without waiting for external circumstances to align perfectly. Think about the small joys that often go unnoticed, the warmth of sunlight streaming through a window, the taste of a favorite meal, or the sound of laughter shared with someone you love. These moments, though fleeting, hold the seeds of contentment. The Stoics taught that true satisfaction comes from appreciating these simple, everyday gifts rather than constantly striving for more. It's not about rejecting ambition or settling for less. It's about recognizing that the present moment, just as it is, can be enough. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." This perspective shifts the focus from what's missing to what's already here, inviting you to find richness in the ordinary. Let's bring this into a modern context. Imagine you're stuck in traffic, running late for an important meeting. The frustration builds as you glance at the clock, wishing the cars ahead would move faster. But what if, instead of focusing on the delay, you use that time to appreciate the quiet solitude of your car? Maybe you take a moment to listen to a favorite song or reflect on something you're grateful for. This small shift doesn't change the situation, but it changes how you experience it. It's a way of practicing contentment, of finding peace even in the midst of chaos. Epictetus often reminded his students that inner peace comes from within, not from external circumstances. He wrote, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." This isn't about ignoring life's challenges or pretending everything is perfect. It's about choosing to focus on what you can control: your perspective, your gratitude, and your ability to find joy in the here and now. So here's a question to reflect on. What's one thing that brings you contentment today? Maybe it's the comfort of a morning routine, the satisfaction of a task completed, or even the quiet stillness of a moment alone. Whatever it is, take a moment to savor it. By cultivating contentment, you're not just finding peace in the present, you're building a foundation for lasting fulfillment, one small, joyful moment at a time. Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, a truth the Stoics understood deeply. While it may feel like an act of kindness toward others, forgiveness is ultimately about freeing your own mind from the weight of resentment. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most profound voices, wrote extensively about the corrosive nature of holding on to grudges. He likened anger and resentment to carrying a heavy burden, one that drains your energy and clouds your ability to see clearly. Anger, he said, is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Forgiveness, in contrast, is about setting down that burden, not because the other person deserves it, but because you deserve peace. Imagine carrying a backpack filled with rocks. Each rock represents a grudge, a past hurt, or a moment you can't let go of. Over time, the weight becomes unbearable, slowing you down and making every step harder than it needs to be. Forgiveness is the act of removing those rocks one by one, lightening your load so you can move forward with ease. It's not about excusing the harm done to you or pretending it didn't happen. It's about choosing to no longer let that harm control your present or your future. Seneca believed that holding onto anger only prolongs the pain, writing, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." In other words, the most powerful response to hurt is to rise above it, to refuse to let it define you. Let's bring this into a modern context. Think about a time when someone betrayed your trust or made a mistake that deeply affected you. Maybe it was a friend who let you down, a coworker who took credit for your work, or even a family member who hurt you in a way that still stings. The natural instinct might be to hold onto that pain, to let it fester and shape how you see that person, or even yourself. But what if instead you chose to forgive, not because they've earned it, but because you're ready to release the grip that resentment has on your heart? Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or reconciling. It means choosing to no longer let that hurt dictate your emotions or your actions. So, here's a question to reflect on. What's one grudge you can release today? It might be something small, like a rude comment that's been lingering in your mind, or something larger, like a past betrayal that still weighs on you. Whatever it is, consider the freedom that comes with letting it go. Forgiveness isn't about the other person, it's about you. It's about reclaiming your peace, your clarity, and your ability to live fully in the present. And in doing so, you're not just healing the past, you're opening the door to a brighter, lighter future. How do you measure success? Is it by the results you achieve, the recognition you receive, or something deeper? The Stoics offer a refreshing perspective. Success isn't about the outcome, it's about the effort you put in. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." These words cut straight to the heart of the matter. True success lies in doing your best, regardless of whether the world applauds or even notices. It's about aligning your actions with your values, not chasing external validation. Imagine you're working on a project that's close to your heart. You pour your energy into it, refining every detail, but when it's finally complete, the response is lukewarm. It's easy to feel discouraged, to question whether your effort was worth it. But the Stoics would challenge you to shift your perspective. Instead of focusing on the outcome, whether it's praise, profit, or recognition, focus on the effort itself. Did you give it your all? Did you act with integrity and dedication? If the answer is yes, then you've already succeeded, regardless of the result. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to let your actions speak for themselves. In other words, the value of your work isn't determined by how others perceive it, but by the care and intention you put into it. Let's take a practical example. Think about a time when you prepared for a presentation or a big event. Maybe you spent hours researching, practicing, and perfecting your delivery, but on the day, things didn't go as planned. Perhaps the audience wasn't engaged or technical issues threw you off. It's tempting to see this as a failure, but the Stoic approach invites you to see it differently. The effort you invested, the hours of preparation, the focus, the commitment wasn't wasted. It shaped you, taught you, and made you better, even if the outcome wasn't what you hoped for. This mindset doesn't just soften the blow of disappointment, it transforms it into a source of strength. So, here's a question to reflect on. What's one effort you can focus on today? It might be a personal goal, a professional task, or even a simple act of kindness. Whatever it is, commit to giving it your best, not because of what it might bring you, but because of what it says about you. By valuing effort over outcome, you're not just redefining success, you're cultivating a mindset of resilience, integrity, and inner peace. And in a world that often measures worth by results, that's a radical and empowering way to live. Balance is the key to a fulfilling life, a principle the Stoics held in high regard. They understood that extremes, whether in work, pleasure, or even virtue, could lead to imbalance and discontent. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most practical teachers, often spoke about the importance of moderation, advising his students to avoid excess in all things. He wrote, "Freedom is not achieved by satisfying desire, but by eliminating it." At first glance, this might sound restrictive, but it's actually liberating. Moderation isn't about denying yourself. It's about finding harmony, about ensuring that no single aspect of life overshadows the rest. It's a way of living that allows you to enjoy the richness of experience without being consumed by it. Think about how this applies to something as fundamental as work and leisure. Many of us fall into the trap of overworking, believing that more hours equal more success. But the Stoics would argue that true productivity comes from balance. Working tirelessly without rest might yield short-term gains, but over time, it leads to burnout, stress, and a diminished capacity to enjoy life. On the flip side, too much leisure without purpose can leave you feeling unfulfilled and adrift. The key is to find a rhythm that allows you to be productive without sacrificing your well-being. Imagine structuring your day to include focused work, meaningful rest, and time for connection with others. This isn't just about managing your schedule. It's about honoring all aspects of your humanity, your need to create, to recharge, and to connect. Moderation also extends to less tangible areas like emotions and desires. The Stoics believed that even virtues, when taken to extremes, could become vices. For example, courage is admirable, but recklessness is dangerous. Generosity is noble, but self-sacrifice to the point of depletion is unsustainable. The goal is to navigate life with a steady hand, neither indulging too much nor depriving yourself. It's about cultivating a sense of equilibrium, where you can enjoy life's pleasures without being enslaved by them, and face its challenges without being overwhelmed. So, here's a question to consider. What's one area where you can practice moderation today? Maybe it's setting boundaries around your work hours, limiting screen time, or even finding a healthier balance between giving to others and taking care of yourself. Whatever it is, remember that moderation isn't about perfection, it's about progress. By striving for balance, you're not just improving your life, you're creating the conditions for lasting fulfillment, one mindful choice at a time. Change is the only constant, a truth as timeless as it is universal. From the rise and fall of empires to the shifting seasons, life is a never-ending dance of transformation. The Stoics understood this deeply, teaching us not to resist change, but to embrace it as an integral part of existence. Seneca, one of Stoicism's wisest voices, wrote, "What fortune has made yours is not your own." These words remind us that nothing in life is permanent, and clinging to what's familiar often leads to suffering. Instead, the Stoics encouraged us to adapt, to flow with life's currents rather than fighting against them. This isn't about passive acceptance, it's about active engagement, choosing to see change not as a threat, but as an opportunity for growth. Let's bring this into a modern context. Imagine you've just started a new job. The routines you've built over years are suddenly upended, replaced by unfamiliar tasks, new colleagues, and a different rhythm of daily life. It's easy to feel overwhelmed, to long for the comfort of what you left behind. But what if, instead of resisting this shift, you leaned into it? Perhaps you use this transition to learn new skills, build fresh relationships, or even rediscover parts of yourself that had grown stagnant. This is the essence of embracing change. It's not about denying the challenges, but about finding the potential within them. Seneca often compared life to a river, constantly flowing and never the same. He wrote, "You cannot step into the same river twice." Each moment brings something new, and the choice is ours, to resist and struggle or to adapt and thrive. Consider a smaller, more personal example, adjusting to a new morning routine. Maybe you've always started your day with a cup of coffee and a scroll through your phone, but now you're trying to replace that habit with meditation or journaling. At first, it might feel awkward, even frustrating, but over time, as you lean into the discomfort, you begin to see the benefits: greater clarity, deeper focus, and a sense of calm that carries you through the day. This is change in action, not as something to fear, but as something to welcome. The Stoics believed that by practicing adaptability in small ways, we build the resilience needed to handle life's bigger shifts. So, here's a question to reflect on. What's one change you can embrace today? It might be something as simple as trying a new approach to a recurring problem, or as significant as stepping into a role or situation that feels outside your comfort zone. Whatever it is, remember that change isn't just inevitable, it's essential. It's the catalyst for growth, the spark that keeps life vibrant and dynamic. By embracing it, you're not just navigating the twists and turns of life, you're shaping them into opportunities to become stronger, wiser, and more fully alive. What gives your life meaning? It's a question that can stop you in your tracks if you really sit with it. For the Stoics, the answer wasn't found in fleeting pleasures or external achievements. It was discovered by aligning your actions with a greater purpose. Marcus Aurelius, in his meditations, often reflected on the importance of living intentionally, writing, "You were made not for pleasure, but for work and action." These words aren't a call to grind endlessly. They're a reminder to live deliberately, to ensure that what you do each day contributes to something larger than yourself. Purpose, in this sense, isn't just a lofty ideal, it's a daily practice, a way of infusing meaning into even the smallest actions. Take the example of volunteering. Imagine dedicating a few hours each week to a cause you care about, whether it's mentoring a young person, serving meals at a shelter, or cleaning up a local park. These acts might seem small, but they ripple outward, creating connections and making a tangible difference in the lives of others. For the Stoics, this kind of service wasn't just about helping others. It was about grounding yourself in something bigger, about recognizing that your life gains depth and richness when it's tied to a greater good. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself, "What is not good for the hive is not good for the bee." In other words, your individual well-being is deeply connected to the well-being of the whole. By contributing to the hive, you're not just helping others, you're nourishing your own sense of purpose. But purpose doesn't always have to be tied to grand gestures. It can also be found in pursuing a passion or honing a skill. Think about someone who dedicates their evenings to painting, writing, or learning a new language. These pursuits might not change the world, but they add meaning to life by nurturing creativity, curiosity, and personal growth. The Stoics believed that living with purpose means aligning your actions with your values, whether that's through service, creativity, or simply being present for the people you love. It's about knowing why you do what you do and letting that why guide your choices. So, here's a question to reflect on. What's one way you can live more purposefully today? Maybe it's committing to a small act of service, dedicating time to a long-neglected passion, or even simply being more present in your interactions with others. Whatever it is, remember that purpose isn't something you find. It's something you create, one intentional choice at a time. By aligning your actions with what truly matters to you, you're not just living, you're living with meaning. And in a world that often feels chaotic and uncertain, that's a gift only you can give yourself. As we wrap up this journey through 30 bold Stoic practices, it's worth taking a step back to see the bigger picture. Each of these principles, from the Dichotomy of Control to Amor Fati, from morning reflection to evening gratitude, is a tool, a way to dismantle the negative patterns that hold us back. But when you combine them, they become something greater, a blueprint for living with clarity, resilience, and purpose. These practices aren't just isolated ideas, they're interconnected, each one reinforcing the others to help you build a life rooted in self-awareness and intentional action. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most enduring voices, once said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." These words capture the essence of what we've explored together. It's not enough to simply know these practices, you have to live them. Whether it's embracing discomfort to grow stronger, practicing gratitude to shift your perspective, or letting go of anger to reclaim your peace, each step is a choice. And every choice, no matter how small, shapes who you become. As you reflect on these practices, consider which ones resonate most deeply with you. Maybe it's the power of cognitive detachment, helping you step back from harmful thoughts. Or perhaps it's the practice of Memento Mori, reminding you to live with urgency and focus. Whatever it is, start there. Choose one practice to implement today and let it guide your actions. Over time, you'll find that these principles don't just change your habits, they transform your mindset, helping you see challenges as opportunities and setbacks as lessons. The Stoics believed that life is a series of choices, and every choice is a chance to align yourself with your highest values. By embracing these practices, you're not just reacting to life, you're shaping it. You're building resilience, cultivating inner peace, and creating a life that's not just lived but truly felt. So, what's your next step? Which practice will you bring into your life today? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear how these insights resonate with you. And if you found value in this journey, consider subscribing for more Stoic wisdom to help you navigate life's challenges with clarity and courage. Remember, the power to obliterate negative patterns and create a life of purpose is already within you. All you have to do is take the first step. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of Stoic practices. Until next time, keep living boldly, intentionally, and with the quiet strength of a Stoic. You've got